because that way people who okay. Hi everyone, and officially welcome to the webinar, the fourth one. It's on spiritual friendship, Chevruta, and I'm going to share the screen so you can see. Go. Okay, so let's start out the way I always start out, reminding people that we do have a closed Facebook group where we have a conversation going about the month's topic. And if you have anything you want to post, any questions or anything that's going on in your group, we encourage you to do it there because we like to form a community between our different groups. So now that I've reminded you about that, and I'll put the link in the follow-up email. Let's get started. I'm going to talk about the themes, and because I put you guys in such a way that you can just call out if you have a question, just say something, and if, please feel free to just participate in any way that feels good to you. So the topic is spiritual friendship, Chevruta, and it's interesting because when I started to do this, I know that Chaver is a friend and Chavera is a friend for a woman in Hebrew, but I didn't know, and I discovered that the Aramaic word Chevruta is a term used for the relationship between study partners. So while the value placed on friendship originally focused on enabling Torah study, it could easily be extended beyond this to friendship, support, challenge, and comfort that we know in our friendships. Having a Chevruta partner is built into the spiritual practice of Musar. So when you do this topic with your groups, it's a good idea to have to do it in pairs and then come together as a group. The reason it's good to work in pairs or to have Chevruta is that it's helpful to be accountable to someone else, to have someone else support you in your efforts and vice versa. So we're going to look at the importance of spiritual friendship in a few different commentaries. Two of them are from an extended teaching on friendship written by Rabbi Moses ben Shimon, who you probably know as Rambam. He lived in the 12th century, and each commentary that we're going to study responds to the same teaching, the very famous acquire for yourself a friend from Pirkei Avot. So let's take a look at the themes. It's helpful to be accountable to someone else, and it's helpful to have someone else support you, and we should do the same for others. So we're going to look into this more deeply as we go through this webinar and see what it really means to us now and historically to be friends, to have Chevruta. We're going to start out with a nice activity. It's a good exercise to start with. Every participant gets 3 blank index cards. And on the first card, list the 3 most important qualities you look for in a friend. On the second card, list the 3 qualities you bring to a relationship as a friend. And on the third card, write down 1 or 2 reasons why a friendship you used to have dissolved or ended. Refer to these cards to see whether you're the kind of friend or have the kinds of friends that the texts we're going to study describe. So it's an interesting thing to do. And it's interesting to think about what are the qualities that you look for in a friend. I know that after studying this topic, you may feel even a little bit differently than you do before you start. So let's look at the first text. It's from Avot de Rabbi Natan, which is part of the books collectively referred to as the minor tractates. Avot de Rabbi Natan is connected to Pirkei Avot. Many of the sayings in Pirkei Avot also appear in Avot de Rabbi Natan. It consists largely of maxims that cover life advice, like the proper approach to Torah study, what it is to have common courtesy. One basic difference between Avot de Rabbi Natan and Pirkei Avot is that Avot de Rabbi Natan has longer commentaries and expansions on the statements. So some people say that Avot de Rabbi Natan is a commentary on Pirkei Avot, and some people go the other way, and they feel that Pirkei Avot is a distillation of the wisdom from Avot de Rabbi Natan. It's just nice to have a little background on the text, just so you kind of know, what you're reading, what you're learning about. So let's look at the text. How does one acquire a friend? by eating together, drinking together, reading together, studying together, and revealing one's secrets, both Torah secrets and everyday secrets. So it's a good jumping off point for discussion on friendship. And looking at this, what is suggested, how you acquire a friend. So are there any other ways that we find friends besides eating and drinking and reading and studying? What are some ways like today? Does anyone want to jump in? Okay, so I might say by being involved in some kind of social action together, doing something that you are interested in, taking a class together. Nowadays, it's harder to make friends. People go on the internet or they go to meetups. I have a friend who just moved out to California because her kids did, but she moved out there basically by herself, and she's taking art classes, and she loves to ride a bike, and she's established for herself. Oh, and she loves animals. She's found a community for herself that way. So that might be another way that people become friends. It's likely that you've shared everyday secrets with friends. What do you think is the difference between an everyday secret and a Torah secret, if you do think there's a difference?
Good question.
Yeah. So I thought about it two ways, and please jump in and give me your opinion. So a Torah secret, you could look at it as, since the Torah kind of is our guide or our blueprint for making our decisions, I feel like maybe when you've had to make some kind of a decision or a moral decision, and you've shared that with a friend and they've kind of gone back and forth and given you advice, that possibly that's a Torah secret. Does anybody want to weigh in on this?
I think of using, it's very similar to what you're saying in regards to using your life experiences related to the moral guide, which is our Torah, and basically sharing something to benefit the group, the friend, helping navigate, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to look at it. That's a very good explanation. And, why do you think that sharing a secret is one of the main ways to make a friend? So I think it's because when you share a secret, you're showing trust. Did you want to say something? Can I unmute you?
Muted. Oh.
Yeah.
I was just going to say sort of showing your vulnerability.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
Sorry, so I'm like tiny bit like clueless, and I've never taught one of these before. I'm really looking forward to it. Does everybody get this in the class?
Yes, everybody gets it in the class. And when I did it, I did it with like a group of friends. All my friends are Jewish educators, which kind of put us in a different spot. But, well, actually, not everyone in the group was. We had my mom. I mean, all kinds of people. Anyway, so it's really easy because these are great jumping off points for conversations. And you can kind of go wherever the other people go with it. And they're nice questions because they make you really like answer from your heart. So you get to feel close with the people that are there. The biggest challenge I ever had was certain people who just wouldn't stop talking, and you need to sort of guide them. But that's, as far as I've had in my experiences, that's the only thing that I've ever found a challenge. And everyone has it, so you can take turns reading the text, and you can, do the questions that inspire you, and that's basically how you do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. So the other thing I want to ask about this is, what does it mean to acquire a friend? Because I think acquiring is kind of a strange word nowadays when you think about making friends. And I think that, nowadays we think of acquire as like buying an object, whereas we think of making a friend as more like a spiritual realm. So when we look at the next text, I think it's going to become more obvious or more interesting as to what it is. But again, if you have a thought, just, jump.
I have a thought about that.
What? Yeah.
I never thought about that. I agree with you. The acquire, so I'm kind of a funny word, and it made me think of like on Facebook, like, oh, you know, I have like 1,000 friends, like you're like it's this competition, you know, and not really about like, but what is an actual friend? Like, does it matter that you have 1,000 friends on Facebook, or do you have someone to call when you really need someone to talk to?
That's a really good point, and it's really relevant because we have a Facebook culture now. So it's very interesting for you to say that. That's a good point. I think you should bring it up with your groups because I think it's really interesting, and it really speaks to acquiring a friend. So let's keep it in mind. I'm going to give a little background on this text. It's from Shmona Perakim, which you might know means 8 chapters. This is Rambam's introduction to Pirkei Avot. He discusses ethical issues. So he said the ideas in it are from stories, from Midrashim, from the Talmud, and from opinions of other scholars. This particular text that we're going to look at is a commentary on a commentary, which is that might be interesting to you and your participants. And we are going to comment on the commentary on the commentary. So we're going to follow in this long chain of Jewish thinkers. And so Rambam's commenting on what we just read, acquire for yourself a friend, from Babylonian Talmud. So let's see what he says. Acquire for yourself a friend. Note the language of acquisition. It does not say make a friend or become friendly with others. The point is you should always have a friend who will help you better all aspects of your conduct. As our sages commented, either friendship or death. So in Aramaic, it's Chevruta or Matuta. So it rhymes. So it's like a catchphrase. If one does not easily find a friend, one must make efforts in this direction. If necessary, one should procure, and there's another word, procure, his or her friendship until true friendship is established. One should not cease accommodating oneself to the other person's nature until such friendship has been established. Thus, the ethical masters have taught, do not establish friendship according to your nature, establish friendship according to your friend's nature. Okay, this is full of stuff to think about. I think we might have noticed that there have been friendships that have happened where people, I'm just thinking of a friend of mine who married a woman who seemed like she was everything he wanted until they were married, and then she was nothing he wanted. You hear stories like that all the time. So that's something to keep in mind when we're reading this. What do you see as the ultimate goal of true friendship, according to this text?
I would say the goal is learning from one another and making yourself a better person because of the friendship that you have with that person.
That is awesome. I didn't know how you learned from this. That's exactly what it is. And when I read it, I didn't understand that. But you're right, exactly that. Making yourself a better person and studying together. Yeah. So when they say do not establish a friendship according to your nature, establish a friendship according to your friend's nature. The question is, do you think that's a good idea? And if so, yes, and if not, why? And is maybe there a gray area there? I think that it's nice to be easygoing and to accommodate people for sure, when you're becoming friends and later also. I think it's also, though, important to be honest about who you are so that they are actually, making friends with the real you. That was my feeling when I read this. And the next question, do you have a friend who helps you better all aspects of your conduct? And how would a friend do that? So this friend of mine who moved to California, she's like my sister. She's not my actual sister, but she's like a sister. And one of the things I noticed that she does is when I have a problem and we talk about it, she discusses other ways to handle it, but she always does it like by asking me a question. And I think that really works for me because I think a friend needs to give you different ideas, maybe suggest if you're doing something wrong, maybe oppose you in certain times, but they have to do it in a way that makes sense to you and that makes you think. So that's my answer to this question. And yeah.
I think of a true friend, like I like how you put it. I sort of like a mirror in a way. And, you know, that they could be honest with you about, you know, if something like, I mean, of course, if you did something that bothered them or hurt them, but, you know, that you're comfortable enough with each other that you can kind of give each other honest feedback, but in a way that feels, that feels like supportive and supportive.
I love that mirror. I'm actually writing that down. I might put that in our follow-up email because it's such a good way of putting it. That's right. Because like a mirror is honest with you. When you look in the mirror, you know, I don't always like what I see, but I know it's there. So it's a good thing. It's a good way of putting it. So there's Hani the Circle Maker was a legendary character in the Talmud. And there are a lot of stories about him. One of them is he woke up after in a time warp, 70 years, to find out that people no longer knew him or believed that he was who he said he was. And he died in this story of like a broken heart. And the idea is that it shows that people need friends. So that's just kind of like a nice thing to put in there. What is the expression, the Aramaic expression, Chevruta o Matuta, friendship or death? What does that mean to us?
We all need people.
Yeah, you know, I was doing a webinar yesterday on the standard topic, which is interpersonal relationships, and they found out that the biggest decider on how long you're going to live is not what you eat or how much you exercise. It's whether you have a supportive environment and you have friends.
Yep.
Very interesting. So I think that that's like a physical expression of what we're talking about. And I thought that was very interesting. Now, have you experienced a friendship that did not survive disagreements? I personally have never stopped being friends with someone because of disagreements, but I will tell you that my husband's family, siblings stopped talking to each other over political disagreements, which I find to be kind of the wrong priorities. So I guess that in the light of what things are like in this political climate, the question is, do you think it's worthwhile to be friends with someone with whom you disagree? What kinds of disagreements fit into this category? And why would a friendship be worthwhile or not worthwhile in this kind of situation?
I think when you open yourself up to other perspectives, you as a person can learn and grow, and it challenges you to actually think about why you think the way you do. So I think it's a good thing.
I do too. I think that, in my opinion, the priority is the things we can actually change, the things we actually touch. And the outside world, while we're doing our best, I don't think that's a reason to stop being friends with someone. You know, if you voted for a different president or you are more environmentally conscious. I mean, I'm a vegetarian and not all my friends are vegetarians. I'm not going to stop being friends with someone because they eat animals. They know that, you know, if they made me eat their food, we might have a problem, but, you know, we can all sit there and agree to disagree in certain ways. Yeah.
That, you know, these days we're so inclined to see things as very black and white, like, you know, you voted for Trump, I voted for Clinton, like, you know, and that's it. And it's like, if you can get past that black and whiteness of things and say, well, there's a story here, and, you know, there's more to this person than just who they voted for. And, you know, what are, I mean, if you can go there, like, tell me more about like who you are and what led you down this path towards the choices you make. Because I think every decision we make is really complex and complicated and really probably fascinating if you're willing to kind of go there. I also wanted to ask you, I loved that how long you live is related to how supportive your environment is. Where did that come from? I really liked that.
I'm going to find exactly where it came from, and I'll put it in the follow-up email.
Okay.
It was it was in my yesterday's webinar, and I had the info, but what I remembered was the point of it.
There was something about interpersonal relationships.
Yeah. That's like the standard topic for this month, and the Musar topic is what we're discussing.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. If you find it, I'd love to know.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too. I'll find where it was from, and I'll send the link. So let's look at the next text. Okay. So we're striving for an ethically inspired friendship. The text is from Shmona Parakim also, and it talks about different kinds of friendship. The terms used might seem a little bit archaic, just like some of the other ones are, but it encourages us to think about what these terms mean and how they relate to the kinds of words we use to describe friendship today. And I love that Facebook idea. So I'm going to put that in our follow-up email also, but I'll read the text. In general, there are 3 types of friends: a useful friend for the sake of benefit, a pleasant friend for the sake of satisfaction, and a friend befriended for the sake of a higher purpose who actually inspires and instructs. When both friends yearn for and are directed towards the goal of the good, they are ethically inspiring friends to each other. Each one will want to be helped by his or her friend in achieving that good for both of them together. This is the type of friend you are commanded to acquire. So, what do you think an ethically inspired friendship is? Like, what do you think that term means?
Accountability?
That's a really good one. Yes, accountability. Exactly. Because it's a higher purpose, and and that doesn't have to be like on a level of I am doing something for the world. I think every day we make decisions that we need ethical inspiration for. And when you talk to your friend and you both counsel each other, you are having an ethically inspired friendship. You're looking at spiritually the right way to make your decisions. And they can be little. They don't have to be, changing the world, although changing the world is good too. How do you move a friend from useful or pleasant to being a spiritual friend? Like, what kinds of activities or conversations would bring that kind of friendship around? I'm thinking that a pleasant friend is someone you don't know that well. They're like an acquaintance. And you might do some activities together. But I think when you start talking about things that are important to you and sharing, that's when I think you really become ethically inspired friends.
It's so interesting because I find in my own life, like my closest friends are the friends that I made in high school and college. And then I was in grad school, and I'm a cantor, so I've been in a lot of school, and now that I'm married with kids, and I find it so hard to make friends, and I think I have a lot of sort of pleasant friends in this category, and I don't know, I think that's such a good question of is it just spending more time together? I think I'm probably not patient enough, and it's so easy when we're in college because you're just with each other all the time. And now we're so busy now. When do you find that time, to go on this date with a new friend, and it feels like, I'm just exhausted. I don't have the energy to go, make a new friend. And I don't know. So I want to know the answer to that. I'm not sure I know.
So it's interesting. So coming to it from an older perspective, yeah, when my kids were little, we were friends with our kids' friends' parents. And now our kids are all grown up, and we moved from our big house in the suburbs to a sailboat. We live in the Hudson River in a sailboat. And the other people that do that are generally in the same part of life as we are, because you're not going to do that with a bunch of kids. And so we have a lot of pleasant friends that we, do stuff with. But the ones we become close to, I think part of it is when something happens that you share with someone. As long as everything's going fine, that's good. But let's say one of your kids has a real issue, and you share that with one of your friends, then I think you become closer. I think when you're in a younger part of life and you're changing more, and other people are also, it's easier to become close. And I'm still friends with my high school friends, and it's more than half my life ago, way back. But the friends that we stayed friends with are the friends I think that went through something, some kind of an important thing, and we helped each other through it. I think that's probably, I think, how that goes. And if anybody else wants to weigh in.
I think I view some of my closest friends as people that have been through similar life circumstances that have brought us together through our stories.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's much easier when your life is crazy with activity. It's easier to connect with something that happened, it currently is going on, which makes it, that's where I have kind of connected a lot through life circumstances and similar circumstances, as you talked about.
Yeah. I think that you become friends, or you do stuff with people in similar situations who are just doing the same stuff. I think you become really close when there's a challenge of some kind that you have to work together to overcome, and you start to be, and actually I think you're going to find that your Chai Mitzvah groups become close because you have these discussions that are not superficial. I think there's just a difference between a superficial friendship and a real deep friendship, and it has to do with sharing things. And the other thing I was going to say is, do you think that, and I am not sure about this, but it seems to me possible that today's standards for friendship are different than they were 30 years ago or 60 years ago. Like, I think maybe people expect from each other may be different because of the way our society is now. I don't think that my kids expect the same thing from their friends that I expected from my friends when I was younger. I think that we connected in different ways. We didn't have social media, and we didn't have our phones all the time. And I think that the things you needed were different from people, just in terms of physical support. But I think that nowadays there seems to be less of an expectation in certain ways. I think there's less of a commitment, less of an expectation. And I'm not sure if that's right. It's just what I kind of see anecdotally. I don't know. Anybody wants to weigh in on that also?
That makes me sad to think.
Yeah.
My kids are little, so I don't
know. I mean, like, when I was younger, if you needed something, like if one of your kids were sick and you needed something, you couldn't order it on Amazon and have it come. You know what I mean? Like my daughter in Brooklyn, when she doesn't feel well, she can get medicine in 2 hours delivered, right? But I couldn't do that, So I think you just needed different things from other people. Anyway, but I could be wrong, and there could be.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So the way we're doing this Chai Mitzvah program here at our congregation is we're rotating teachers.
Mm-hmm.
Do some people do it that way? It sounds like more.
Yes, a lot of people do it that way. And that's part of the reason why this is nice, because we can give each other ideas of how to do it, and people can discuss what's going on in their groups. I had someone on, I just remember this because it was such a good idea. She was doing gratitude for her group, which is one of the later topics. And she said, I'm going to bring wine and chocolate because that's something we're all grateful for. And everyone else on the webinar went, yeah, I'm going to do that too. Because people can come up with ideas of what, good ways to do things. Like here, this little index card thing is a nice way to start. And just some of the things that we talk about might inspire you. Someone will say something in your group and you'll remember something we said here, and it'll just make it go. And so other people who are leading the groups, should come on the webinars, and they can get some feedback or some ideas too. Mm-hmm. So let's look at the next text. I like this a lot. Who finds a faithful friend finds a treasure. That's a Jewish proverb. It's a really simple text, but it's a good jumping off point to discuss what makes a true faithful friend. And how do you become a true and faithful friend? Um, and the text we've studied so far might influence our answers here. I mean, I think a lot of it has to do with trust.
Mm-hmm. Showing up.
Showing
being
up.
there.
Yeah.
Being real.
Being real. That's right. Being there, being real.
Yeah.
I really like that mirror image in my head. You know, being empathetic, I guess, makes a true friend.
Yeah, kind of sticking. I mean, I think you said like being there, but sticking through. And I mean, I think of a friend that I've been friends with for a very long time, and we definitely had rocky times. And I gave her some honest feedback when she was frustrated with me, and I feel like we've both really like grown through it, and so sort of like sticking it out, you know.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that a person, in order to achieve a friendship like this, has to have enough, not too much ego, to be able to hear what the other person's saying and to know, to trust that person that they're not telling it to them for the wrong reason. You know, I think that's really important. And the topic before this, it's a lot about giving advice. The topic 3 for Chai Mitzvah, it's like Jewish texts on how to give advice. But one of the things it says is that you think about the reasons why you're doing it. And I think it's important to do it for the right reasons, because you care, and for the other person to know that you are. So I think that's a really good point. And it kind of brings us to the next text, which is, a real friend feels no need to excuse himself for something. As you can see, this is from the Lubliner rabbi. His name was Yehuda Meir Shapiro, or sometimes it was called Shapira. He lived from 1887 to 1933, and he was a prominent Polish rabbi. But this text reminded me of the quote from Love Story, which is why I have that photo on there. Love means never having to say you're sorry. So I don't know whether or not you agree with this. And that's why I put it there too, because I feel like a real friend feels no need to excuse himself for some failing. Yes. But for some action, I would say no. I'd say if you respect the other person, you do need to explain if you do some kind of an action that hurts them. Whereas some failing, if that means like a character trait, well, you know, to accept them for who they are. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah, I think like if a friend does something wrong, I think there is a sort of expectation of an apology. Like if you've hurt, you know, you're my friend and you hurt me, I hope there would be an apology and I would do the same. But then with this sort of like baseline understanding that there is like unconditional love there. And so like, yeah, I didn't mean to hurt you. I screwed up, you know, but I don't know, I guess it's sort of knowing from your history together that there's this like base of love and respect.
Right. It kind of makes me wonder, what's the responsibility of each party? So I guess like the responsibility of the person who's harmed or who's hurt, their responsibility is to understand. And the responsibility of the person who messed up is to recognize that and in some way acknowledge it and, you know, explain it and apologize. I think that's so no need to excuse himself for some failing. Well, yeah, excuse, I guess, is the word we focus on here, because I think there is some kind of responsibility there, but maybe excusing isn't the word. All right, so that leads us to the next one, which is so interesting. This is after what we just discussed. It's from Ben Sira, who is also called Ben Sirach, and he lived during the 2nd century BCE. He was what?
Sorry, you're giving like nice little background on each person. Is that something you can send us to, or?
I can, yeah. I don't usually, but why not? It's a good idea when you're teaching, because it's nice to know.
Where are you getting?
It may actually be in the books, in the new booklets. I think we might have put it in.
It's not in the book I have.
Okay, I will send it, because I think it's nice to know. So this guy lived in the 2nd century BCE, and he was a Hellenistic Jewish scribe.
Oh, don't say that. Okay.
So the thing that's interesting here is, we just had Hanukkah, and here's this guy. But what he said was, be on your guard against your friends. So what do you think that means? And so, yeah.
Maybe it's, they're so close to you that maybe you, I don't know. I mean, I have trouble with this one because I would like to think I don't need to be on guard against my friends. So I don't know. It's hard to imagine where he was coming from with this.
Right. So I was trying to figure this out, and I thought that there might be certain aspects of life maybe you can't even expect your friends to be responsible to you. Like, I don't know, if you have a car accident with them, I think you have to treat them less like friends and more like just people. Or if there's like a work issue, it was challenging to work with a friend and to kind of separate the non-friend things from the friendship. So I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of, because that's like really makes you feel like making a friend, as we've discussed all this time, is building trust. It's very strange that then you'd be on your guard against friends. You shouldn't always be able to trust your friends without reservation. I kind of think you should, or they're not really your friend.
Yeah.
But that having been said, when you're not sure, you might want to be on your guard against your friends. But I don't think that's a real friend. So just a thought. And that leads us to the next text. Who tells a secret will forfeit trust and find no true friend. I think that means not who tells a secret, shares a secret. I think that's someone who tells a secret they weren't supposed to tell.
It's not their story to tell.
That's right. And then I was trying to think about, is there ever a correct time, a time when you can betray a friend's trust? And I can think of some situations where you'd be tempted to, or where you think you're helping them. And I can think of some situations where you really are helping them by not keeping a secret that they've told you. For example, someone has a self-harm problem, either drugs or anorexia or something that they're really hurting themselves. You're not helping them by not sharing that with someone. Not that they're going to help themselves just because now someone else knows, because you can't really get a person to help themselves. But if you don't bring that out, they might not be saved in a situation where they, could have actually harmed themselves.
I think it also, I think of what the intention of the other person is when sharing, because intention is everything. If you're doing it truly because you care and they're a true friend, I think that, you'll work it out.
Yeah. I think in the long run, looking back on it, they might see your intent as good. And that's a very tricky situation. And you can see it even happened back in ancient times. But it is something that we all have to think about. And it's one of those decisions that is really hard to make about friendship. I think most times you're better off not sharing something somebody else has told you, but certain times you might have to.
Also, it's really hard in that case where, like I have a friend who's in a kind of troubled relationship, and there's like, how much can you try to help them, and how much are you there to listen and support, and sometimes it's not your place to, fix it, even though it's like so painful to see them struggling.
Yeah. Oh, there's a great video on fixing. I don't think we can ever fix anybody's relationships, but there's a great video that's on Vimeo. I'll find it. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's about a woman with a nail in her forehead, and her boyfriend's trying to tell her, she said, have you seen that? It's
Yeah.
funny, right? It's not about the nail. And he keeps saying, but you have a nail in your forehead. She's like, I just want you to listen to me. I don't want you to solve my problems. It's really funny. I'll send the link on that too. It's very funny. And that kind of reflects exactly that. I've had some experiences with people like this, and the truth is, when a person wants to help themselves, they'll help themselves. But the fact that they might share something with you means they're reaching out on some level. They want you to know what's going on some level. So it's a very, very hard decision to make. And I think part of it has to do with, as a friend, what you know about them and what you know about their potential and their strengths to decide exactly what you should do. It's I find that now in present time, so my youngest daughter is terrific, but she was troubled growing up, and her high school friends, of her friends that she was close with in high school, 6 of them are dead. 4 of them drugs, 2 of them suicide. And that was a very, I mean, growing up with those people, you know, that's, you wonder in those situations, what is the proper way to act, you know? This didn't all happen while she was in high school, but some of these kids just didn't make it through college. After, they just didn't make it. Very hard. So, you know, you don't know when to share and when not to share, but it's something to think about. Okay, so anything else anybody wants to weigh in? These are our 7 texts, and then we have some great practices. Help you cultivate the midah. They're very interesting, and they're actually they're good because if you do this between your meetings, it'll help to like build the practices. What I used to do with my group, we would have like a group email, and we kind of share what we were doing as we did them, just because it was a way to connect between the month. So here are some ideas for practices to cultivate. Make a list of the kindnesses that friends have done for you. Aim to do those same kindnesses for others in the coming month. List your advice for friendship and share it with a friend, a family member, or your Chai Mitzvah group. I think especially with your Chai Mitzvah group, that could be fun. Acquire spiritual friends. As a group, plan to go to a museum, take a nature walk or hike together, attend a classical music concert, or do a social justice project, go to a lecture, study Torah. These are interesting things that you can do that will build that spiritual friendship. At the end of the session, you can take a couple of minutes and talk about this and plan what you want to do. And so there are secular activities that build spiritual friendship. Do you think that if you did a practice that was more focused on Jewish, that it would become a more spiritual friendship? Why or why not?
I think it sort of depends on the person. I think sort of it makes me think of whatever text it was earlier on where like you were sort of, what was that one where thinking about them versus yourself or something. I don't remember which one it was.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Accommodating a friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like thinking about like, well, I mean, is it even a Jewish person? Like,
Right.
and could like, I don't know. So I think it's really specific to the kind of person that you're befriending and thinking about what's really true to both of you and what do you share. And
that's a good point. It's a very good point. It's interesting. I think certain activities just make you feel more like sharing. I don't even know why, but I always find, so we've been living on a sailboat now for 8 years, and it's great. It's wonderful. And in the summer, we'll have people come, and we'll do something that's not exciting for me. I do it like all the time, but we'll sail across the bay, drop anchor, and we'll swim and have a picnic, and then we'll come back. And for some reason, it's like magical. Like even if you take someone you don't know that well, by the end of the day, you're just like very relaxed and sharing stuff. So I think there are just certain activities that also just tend to, basically make you share more. And it could be, what?
sounds like a nice life you have.
It is nice. It is nice. It was hard downsizing from a large house like that, but it was worth it for sure. And it's good. It's good. But I'm sure there are other activities that people do also that are just that way, you know. And some of them, like a lecture. I don't know if it's a lecture that you're both interested in, or kind of music that you really like. I mean, there could be things, either Jewish or otherwise, that just make people feel that they can connect. So I think that's interesting. And then the last practice, consider how generosity and compassion, the midot that we've previously studied, connect to the theme of friendship. So I guess as a practice, you would try to be generous and compassionate, or to just note when you are during the month with your friends. So that's an interesting thing. And then let's go to links to additional information. Obviously, a lot has been written about friendship throughout the ages. There's some famous quotes on the two websites below, and you can pick one or two that are your favorites, use them as wallpaper on your computer, or send them as notes to your friends. That's always a nice thing to do. I was also just thinking as I read this that sometimes it's nice to send like a video. I don't know if anybody here, what is it? Oh, Jim Gaffigan. There's a really funny thing on friendship, how like when you have two groups of friends and then they meet each other and you're telling them like, I have a British accent and I don't drink, right? So like, I'm not the person you think I am. So it's just interesting if you find things that are interesting to send to your friends. That's a nice thing too.
I actually think of one of the things that I did probably about a year ago. I have various friends from various places in my life, and I actually put together a painting activity. And the activities that we started it out by going around the room, introducing ourselves, and it was because of my birthday that we were all getting together. Everybody talked about how they knew me and what was their first encounter. So it kind of was an interesting way of seeing that there are many different aspects of a person when you're, sitting across the room from these people. And it's a good way of getting to know people.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah.
Great birthday celebration. I like that idea. That is cool. All right, so now I'm going to go to the personal reflection part. In the back of the booklets, there are questions that can help the participants focus on their independent things that they're doing. And each month is kind of like tied to the topic. So at the end of the session, take a couple of minutes, look at the questions on the back cover, and either have each participant talk about it or just write an answer, depending on your group. They can share or not share, but they might want to focus on what they're doing. And the questions for this one are, how have your friends influenced the choices you've made for your independent project? And how have your independent projects impacted on your relationships with friends? I think you're both starting, right? Your groups in January?
Yes.
Right, so you will obviously not have started any kind of independent projects. But I'm going to send a link to the celebration brochure, which is on our website. What it is, it gives, like when a group finished their year, they had like a ceremony, and they each get a tree planted in their honor from JNF, and they made a little list of the people in the group and what kind of things they took on during their year. And if you have this brochure, you can like show it to people and they can get an idea of what they might want to do. It can be something really little, like, gee, this year I want to sit in the sukkah and shake a lulav. Or it can be something much bigger, like I want to learn how to read Torah. I want to show up every week, or I want to light candles once a month. Really anything in a range of activities that works for the person.
Is this something that they do, like they decide as a group, we're going to do this thing and everybody's going to do it together in their own way? Or is it each person is deciding it?
Good question. It can be done either way. Usually they are encouraged to do what they want independently, or maybe 3 people will do something together. My group, we all wanted to do something together, and we kind of did it every couple of months. We did it together. Like, we decided we were all going to pray every day. And so we started sending around emails with different kinds of prayers and what they are and what they mean. But really, it's an individual choice, and especially because people come in at all different levels, you know,
Mhm.
and they need to do what they want to do, what feels good to them. The idea is it's like their personal journey, but they can share it with a friend. And, you know, like one of my friends in her group in Connecticut, they had people of all different denominations. Some people were very observant, some people were not. One of the women in this group wanted to go to the Women's Seder at the JCC in their community. So everybody went with her. That was just something they decided to do together. And many of them would not have done that. It just wasn't their thing. But they went as a group and they had a good time. So it's very flexible, and you can do whatever you want. A lot of times people want to learn to read Hebrew, or they want to learn to read Torah, or they want to learn Yiddish. But I had someone who just wanted to read every Philip Roth book. Like, it could be anything. I knew someone who studied Jewish superheroes. It can be really, really whatever the people want to do. And then some kind of social action. Again, you can do one thing. You can show up at a soup kitchen once, or you can give some clothes to a collection, or you might be someone who really wants to get more involved and maybe, you know, lead services in an independent living facility. I mean, it can be absolutely anything. I have a friend who she decided to help foster parents. She's like an advocate for foster parents to the state. She's in New Jersey. So there's just all kinds of stuff you can choose. It's very flexible. And maybe if it's your first meeting, you can talk about this. Let them know it doesn't have to be a huge, weighty thing, but it can be something that inspires them. And show them the celebration booklet, because that'll be a really good way of showing what other people have done, like a good way of explaining what it is. Because it's confusing, I think.
And you're going to send us that?
Yeah. It's on our website, but I'll send you a link. And that way you can either print out one or, you know, send other people a link, however it works for you.
And did you say it could be a social action or it could be not, but those are options? Or do you kind of encourage one of each?
One of each. And also something you might want to study on your own. So it could be, I'm going to light candles once a month because I never did that on Shabbat. And I'm going to donate some food. And I'm going to read every Philip Roth book. I mean, those are like examples, but it could be more or less of any of those. I had people in my group who loved artists. They were artists, and they did. One of them, she used to give lectures, so she came and gave us a lecture on Modigliani and his connections to Jewish roots. It could be anything you want to do.
Okay.
Very flexible. All right. So, any other questions or anything you want to bring up? This has been a really good discussion, and I am really happy that we had it. I think some really interesting things came up.
So much. It was so helpful to hear.
Yeah, no, it was really fun. I really thought it was great. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
And I will send out a follow-up email with links and the celebration brochure and anything else. And thanks.
Okay, thank you.
If we have any further questions, we can email you?
Yes, please. You call, email, whatever works for you. I'm always available.
And what's your role? What's your title here?
That is a great question. So my official title is Director of Special Projects, Teen and Family Education. And what I actually do is just about all of that. I am especially, I do in-reach. Like, I talk to people who are leading groups or in groups. I'm the director of the teen program, which is growing very quickly, and I really love it. We have 600 kids doing it this year. It's very exciting.
And the organization is Chai Mitzvah?
The organization is Chai Mitzvah, right? And I feel very lucky because it's great. We build community, and we just work with such nice people all the time, and it's great. And we get to think about stuff like this, which is great.
Is it a non-denominational?
Yeah, completely non-denominational. And we're really not for profit. we do everything, like we try to do things at cost or even less. We're very lucky that we're donor driven and we have, donors to fund us. So that's
Great.
what we do.
It's like you're doing really good work.
Yeah, and it makes you feel good. It's great. So it's good. You are too. You're a cantor, so you're there.
Cool. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm really happy to have had this opportunity to talk, and I hope you guys will be on the next webinar too. It's lots of fun.
Okay, thank you. I most definitely will be.
Great. I'm so glad.
This is very helpful.
I'll be teaching again, I think, in April, so I will probably jump on the webinar for that one.
Great. And people who are in your group, I don't know if I have their emails or not. I'd like to, let them be on webinars or, have that. So, do
You mean who are teaching it?
yeah, like you're taking turns in your group?
Sorry, say again?
You're taking turns. So like you're not going to teach February.
We're taking turns teaching.
Right. So the person who's doing February, I hope that I have that person's email so I can get them on the next webinar if they'd like.
Well, because, it was one of my rabbis who told me about it in the first place, and she's teaching as well, so I think she's on there.
Perfect. Great. Wonderful. Okay.
So much.
That's-
Okay, signing off.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.